Hello again. The QYT KT7900D has arrived, so here's my thoughts so far. To save you watching the entire video, is it good? Yes, in fact it's rather nice. I always dive straight in, and reading the manual, especially on a Chinese designed item, is frequently pointless. And if you are one of those people who have to read the manual before switching on, you're going to get annoyed pretty quickly. The real fault with the manuals is that a minor, seldom used function gets as much detail as the really important ones. So my attitude has always been to dive straight in and only return to the manual if you get really stuck. This radio has a microphone that pretty much does everything, especially if you have big chunky fingers pressing the tiny buttons on the radio itself, especially one this small is a bit hit and miss, more a miss in my own attempts. You need fingernails. On the radio itself, on turning it on from new or after doing a reset, the first task is to turn the beep off because it's loud. To do this, you follow a set of presses that are the key to operating the radio. Top right, the knob needs a push. This brings up the menu item. You rotate the dial until the desired one is in the window, and in this case it's beep. Then you push it again. Then the display then allows you to rotate the knob until it says off. Then you press the knob again to enter it. Press the exit button and you're back to the main display. You can now see 4 frequencies, and pressing the exit button repeatedly takes you through them one by one. The one with the arrow is the active one. Now, the first important fact, while the radio is a quad band radio, it only listens to one at a time. If you have a UHF frequency in row 1 and a VHF frequency in row 2, you do not listen to both. It's not a dual or a quad watch feature. It does scan by going through the channels stored in the 199 memories. From the 80s onwards, we had radios that had a VFO, the system where you dialed in a frequency and could then go up and down from it with buttons, a bit awkward, or a knob, much nicer. You had a separate bank of memories which were then programmed, and they were fixed until you overwrote them with something new. So for the hams and the scanner people, you searched, then you stored. This radio has the same function. The VM function swaps between them, the variable frequency or the stored frequency, one on each line. Keep in mind there are just one set of memories, the 199. Memory 2, when you recall it on any line, is always memory 2. For UK viewers, just a reminder about what is legal and what is not. The reason for me covering this will become clear in a minute. Ofcom in the UK control a number of frequency bands. Until relatively recently, all radios needed a licence to be used. Some were available on request with a payment and needed no user qualifications. So to get a legitimate licence for your taxi business, you simply applied, paid, and they allocated you a channel. If you want a radio for your boat, you take a short course run by the Royal Yacht Association and then you buy your licence for that. If you want to be a radio ham and have access to lots of short and long range frequencies, you normally join a radio club, learn some basic rules, some conditions, a bit of physics, and then after sitting an exam, you can use the ham bands. Oddly, if you want to do this with an aircraft radio, it's a bit different. Ofcom allow the Civil Aviation Authority to run this side of the business, which makes sense, I suppose. And again, you need to take an exam similar to the radio ham exam. Our membership of the European Community allowed the introduction of something called PMR 446, a license exempt system designed for simple operation of cheap equipment that only covers a small area. Equipment designed for this license exempt band must be low power and have an integral aerial, or antenna for those internationally correct folk. Ofcom simply leave the band alone. Here you'll find shoe shops, supermarkets, loads of kids, and often other users who all assume their conversations are private, which of course they're not. There's also an increasing community of people using more power and bigger antennas to get a bit more range, using it a bit like CB radio, which of course still exists, but it's quite a small community of users nowadays. Now comes the strange bit. Using a radio on a band without the appropriate licence is a crime. If you were Radio Caroline on a stinky ex-trawler parked off the east coast, our government got pretty stroppy, and I suppose at least the outcome was that we got Radio 1 out of it. If you try pirate radio now from the top of a block of flats, you'll probably get your collar felt, a big fine and your equipment confiscated. If you use a higher power radio on PMR 446, I doubt anything will happen at all. It's still wrong though. If you have a marine band radio with no licence and one day you need to talk to the Coast Guard to save your life, nobody will mind. Unless it's a real emergency, aircraft are a big no-no, mainly for very common sense reasons, and expect real effort from vehicles with rotating roof racks to prevent you doing things on the aircraft band. Here's the big problem with the radio. In the state it's supplied in, 3 of the frequencies in the radio are dodgy. 136.625 MHz is in the civil aviation band, and if you're in Northern Ireland, near Belfast, this is pretty bad as they use it for their airfield information service. 245.05 MHz is in the military airband, as is 350.625 MHz, and you don't mess with the military. While these last 2 are unlikely to cause any grief, these bands are really bad news. The 245 one being quite near the international distress frequency, which is only a few knob turns away. The last one in the radio is 440.125, which is a pretty empty band, so perhaps less trouble. My advice is to lose these initial boot up frequencies straight away. It's a very small unit, it's really easy to hide in even a tiny car, and it does get hot. There's even a sticker on it warning you about this, as the metal case is used as a heatsink. Programming can be quite quick. Repeater shifts are handled by setting the direction of the frequency offset, then entering the shift. It's all quite painless once you get used to the menu system. Select the menu, rotate the knob till you find the item, select it again, adjust it, select again, exit, and it's done. Everything was discoverable without the manual, and experimenting soon hit on the right button pressing syntax to get things to do what you want. As it's very cheap, what are the bad points? If you look hard, you'll find the microphone's a bit less solid than I'd prefer, and the cable's a bit stiff. Oh, and it lights up very bright at night. You need to make sure you understand how easy it is to transmit in places you shouldn't. If you live in Northern Ireland, the first frequency could be a real problem, and of course you can't actually listen to the aircraft traffic because the radio's FM and airband of course is AM. You can also program the radio from the computer, either using the manufacturer's CPS or by something like Chirp, but it's not necessary. It's very similar to the QTY KT8900 dual band radio, which is about the same size, but that one needs everything to be done from the radio, so the programming is just a little bit more quirky and awkward, but essentially it's the same. But even with the beep off, turning it on and off is loud. For the price, it's a rather nice radio, and it's pretty suitable for beginners, and they'll find it fine once they get used to that menu system. For information, the actual band limits on the 4 sections are these. It covers 200 to 270.9, 350 to 390.9, 130 to 179.9, and 400 to 480.9. Another video is coming soon when the next radio arrives, so bye for now, see you soon.